Welcome to Scriptural Snapshots, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're starting a new topic today, and the topic is about sound doctrine. And my base verse for this coming out is 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 3 and 4. It says, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables." I'll tell you, there are people that say, well, the Bible is an old book. Bible's ancient history. It's over 2,000 years old. Well, actually, the Bible is probably over 3,000 years old, parts of it. And people say, well, because it's old, it's out of date. They weren't as smart as we are today. They didn't understand the complexities of life the way we do today. Well, true, they didn't have computers, and they didn't have automobiles, and they didn't have airplanes, and there's a lot of things that they didn't have that we have today. But can you really say we're better off? Can you really say that the basic human soul has changed so dramatically, even in 3,000 years? We find out that ancient civilizations dealt with exactly the same problems we deal with today. They dealt with pollution, they dealt with wars, they dealt with famine, they dealt with pestilence, they dealt with disease, they had health issues. We find out that they dealt with people that wanted to dominate them, control their lives, people that would just use other people. They had murder, they had rape, they had actually every ill that we are experiencing today, they experienced back then. And yet somehow we survived. I like all these predictions that, well, we're only got 12 more years to live and life will be wiped out as we know it on the planet Earth. No, it won't. We've survived all these years with all these things, all these incidents. Wars were literally, civilizations were slaughtered and wiped out. We've endured all of this, and we're still here. We still exist. So, but they didn't deal with climate change like we are having to struggle with right now. Well, actually, back then they had what we call the Ice Age, and mammoths froze in Russia while they were eating their food. That's how quick the climate changed, and we survived that, didn't we? See, God has built this world to survive. He's built it to self-correct. In the same way, He's created man in His image that we would follow after His precepts, to follow after what I'm calling sound doctrine. And this is really the debate going on in the church today. What is sound doctrine? How can you define sound doctrine? Is there such a thing as sound doctrine? Because we're finding out now, even though Christianity is 2,000 years old almost, we're finding out people are saying, well, there's a new Christianity. Well, Hitler proclaimed that. Hitler talked about I'm thinking a positive Christianity is what he called it. And he threw out the doctrines of the church. He threw out the pastors of the church that believed the Bible. And he put his own ministers in that were state ministers because he could control them and they would preach whatever he had. He called it a positive Christianity. Sounds a lot like what a lot of people are doing today. That they want to keep the name of Christianity because of the influence of the name, because of the attachment people have to being a Christian nation, and they're throwing out the precepts of what it is to be Christian. When I was in seminary, I often refer to it as cemetery because a lot of good people, I believe, go and die there. Their faith is killed while they're in seminary. And so we have this real struggle going on. But in seminary, we read this book by this man, and I read the first 2 pages, which was one paragraph, one sentence. Well, one sentence. One sentence was a whole page. And when I got done reading the book, or I just read the one sentence basically, and I thought, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, because he can't explain himself. He can't say anything concisely because he's got all these words, and you get so embroiled in all the words and so confused you don't really even know what he's talking about anymore. And when I looked him up and found out some things about the author, that he happened to belong to this one denomination, and they were considering excommunicating him. So it's not Protestant, it wasn't Catholic, but they were talking about excommunicating him, but they hadn't really made up their mind yet. Well, why did they want to excommunicate him? Well, he denied the Christ. He denied that God became man. He denied the crucifixion. He denied the death. He denied the resurrection of Jesus. And they were trying to figure out whether they should excommunicate him or not. And my question is this: why do you want to belong to something that you don't believe in? Why do you want to be called a Christian if you don't believe in what makes us distinctly Christian? And one of those things that make us distinctly Christian is to understand the doctrine that God has given to us. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're going to study more tomorrow. We'll see you then. God bless.